Alright, JJK Chapter 224 review. And if you like Jujutsu Kaisen and One Punch Man content, subscribe to this channel for more. So this chapter, we pretty much got what we were all expecting, which was pure fisticuffs between Gojo and Sukuna. We got no flashbacks, no cutaways this chapter, just hands. Or in Sukuna's case, pointing fingers. So the chapter opens up right where Chapter 223 left off, with Gojo telling Sukuna, "You're the challenger here." And Sukuna replies, "Oh, I'm the challenger? You seem pretty pleased for someone who pulled off a surprise attack. You're nothing but a fish atop my cutting board, Gojo." And let's start by peeling off those scales. So when I first read this, I thought, okay, he's talking about infinity. And I guess I used the word fish because Gojo being called a piece of meat by Sukuna would have been a little strange, especially given the end of this chapter. And Gojo asks, "Why are you keeping that face? Do you think I'll go easy on you?" Unfortunately, I've been doing some special training, and since it's Megami, I know I can go all out, because Gojo has never forgotten what Toji's face looks like. Gojo notes that Sukuna already survived death once when he brought Yuji back, so he's not worried about killing him, but I would suggest he doesn't destroy the head. And we see them square up against each other in like a pseudo double spread. And then we get the first hand-to-hand fight between Gojo and Sukuna in 200 chapters since chapter 2. Sukuna going straight for the kick on Gojo. Gojo pretty easily blocking this, and then Sukuna pretty easily blocking his next punch. So it seems like as far as hand-to-hand combat skills concerned, they're pretty even. Granted, we've barely seen anything yet, but if Kenjaku's hand-to-hand is supposed to be equivalent to Gojo, I can't really see the King of Curses hand-to-hand being worse than Kenjaku's. And Gojo pulls the goofiest duck on him and lays flat on the ground. And you'd think a guy with 4 eyes would see this coming, but apparently not. And we've seen Yuji do a similar thing to him previously. And Gojo gives Sukuna the flick and slams him into a wall, which Sukuna responds, oh wow, before he gets launched even further. Now there's a lot of conversation about this being a new Gojo ability, like a telekinesis ability, and I'm not sure if it's actually telekinesis. We've seen him make this exact same hand sign before, while using his limitless barrier in particular. Is this an application of his neutral infinity? I think it probably is, though we've never seen it used to this extent before. It's not much of a shock that Gojo can make objects float when he can make himself float and has made Yuji able to walk on water. My question is he using blue laps, or is he making a platform out of a neutral infinity barrier to move an object or a person? We just don't have enough information yet, because there are definitely arguments for both. But Sukuna is launched through multiple pillars, and he catches himself, only to almost get stepped on by Gojo, which he manages to narrowly barrel roll out of, and he continues to barrel roll, which is kind of goofy. This is a goofy looking panel, I'll be honest. It looks like Gojo slams his foot on the bridge and it perfectly breaks. And I'm sure we've all seen the perfectly chopped bridge in anime or animation before. You guys know what I mean. Character steps on object. Object perfectly breaks in like equal pieces to be tossed. Could he be using his technique to do this? It's possible, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is just anime being anime. And then we see Gojo make the same hand sign as before, and he forces the bridge piece to float with Sukuna on it, and then he tosses it at Sukuna. But we get a little speed wisp, a little speed vroom of Sukuna diving off the slab to get onto the rooftop and jump up towards Gojo. And he gives him the supreme dismantle finger gun, to which Gojo makes an odd face of when it's coming at him. And this is mostly confirmation that he can see dismantle, which everyone expected. Unless Sukuna is capable of launching dismantles with zero curse energy in them, Gojo should be able to see it. And this dismantle just love taps the building behind Gojo, and he turns around to see the carnage. Now this could have bounced off infinity, because we did see Miguel bounce off infinity in the JJK Zero movie. Granted, this never happened in the manga, but we have seen smaller objects bounce off infinity before. And Sukuna revs up the surprise attack on Gojo, and Gojo turns around and catches it with the infinity barrier, as the building is falling above them. Now this is a pretty contentious part, because we see Sukuna's hand start to spark off the infinity barrier, and Gojo seems to take note of this, and he seemingly turns off his barrier and grabs his hand in response, to which we then see Sukuna look shocked at him being grabbed. So from this paneling, it doesn't seem like Sukuna was shocked by the actual barrier, only Gojo's response of grabbing his hand. And this effect of him smacking against the barrier looks a little similar to the domain amplifications we saw in Shibuya. And Gojo also let his barrier down to grab Jogo when this happened to him in Shibuya. And Jogo, like Sukuna in this chapter, looked shocked to actually touch Gojo. So is that what's happening here? Well, given the paneling and given the previous statement of him saying, "I'm going to peel your scales," it does look pretty likely. And it could just be part of his technique, but we don't know for sure yet. But if he's working with Kenjaku, he should know about infinity vicinity, even if he doesn't know it from Megumi and Yuji's memories. But immediately after this, it looks like the building that was falling above them crashes down upon them, and they both just get smacked through a window. So this hallway fight is them falling along with the building, and we see a hand grab a door to open it. And while it looks like Gojo's hand because we don't have the little tattoos on the side of the wrist here, that could just be an art inconsistency, but either way, they both use it as an opportunity for a surprise attack, because at least in Gojo's case, the door is blocking Sukuna's vision. And then Gojo says first comes rock, and we don't get to see the impact of the punch, and it looks like the building crashes into the ground immediately after. But I have seen some people say this is a result of them colliding their fists inside the building. And that's possible, but either way, they come out of the rubble looking like they're straight out of the Expendables. And Gojo says, "I'ma go ahead and pin this on you." To which Sukuna, with the most wholesome smile he's ever given this entire series, says, "Who are you to say anything?" And that is where the chapter ends. So first of all, no Sukuna technique reveal. We are now about to enter chapter 225 with no Sukuna technique reveal. And I've seen some comments a little confused as to if dismantle is his technique or not. It is only one part of his technique. The full applications and nature of Sukuna's technique is currently unknown. All we know is that it can probably store things because he opens up a fire arrow, and that nobody but Kenjaku, Urame, and maybe Yorzu seem to know what it actually is. And there's a lot of talk about whether or not Gojo knows what Sukuna's technique is, but given the way he looks a little shocked at Sukuna's dismantle this chapter, I don't think he does. Because where this statement mainly comes from is from the Hidden Inventory arc where he says, "I can see your technique with my eyes," to the Baghead clone guy. But I just took this as him seeing the separation of these clones from the original due to their different flow of cursed energy. And there might be a separate Gege statement from years ago on this, but besides that, that's really all we have. At the beginning of this chapter, Sukuna is getting dog-walked. Nobody took any permanent damage, but that's pretty much just JJK. I don't know why people spend so much time tossing large objects at each other in this series. First year student Megumi Fushiguro got his ass blasted through like 5 stories. Granted, he had new, but still, he was like, "Oh man, minor inconvenience, let me summon Mahoraga." And I do like the consistency of Sukuna in this chapter because he did the same thing 100 chapters ago against Mahoraga, where Sukuna for the most part just uses his most basic power set of like dismantle, maybe a domain amplification, until he has a full confirmation on what his opponent's power set is, because he's been on the defensive for the past 2 chapters, and I'm glad that Gege clearly put a lot of effort into making sure these characters stayed in character for this fight. Gojo opening up with a Hall of Purple, yeah, that's pretty non-standard, and we've seen him do that against way less than Ryoma and Sukuna. And Sukuna slowly testing his arsenal against his opponent until he finds out what works and what doesn't. And a lot of people thought that Sukuna was going to pop off this chapter, because the clapback is coming, and it's probably going to be pretty brutal considering how well Gojo is doing at the start of this fight. And that 4-armed demon man, he's coming. Probably this fight. There's no way he just stays Maguna here, and hot take, I think Yuji Kuna looked way cooler than Maguna. Maybe it's because Yuji already looks like a younger, non-mutant version of Sukuna. And the thing about this fight right now is we're still getting teased even though we're in the middle of the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. That's kind of incredible to me. Like, most people have thought, okay, we get into the Gojo versus Sukuna fight and it's just going to be non-stop plot reveals and ability reveals. But Gege opens up and they only use powers we've already seen them use, and then immediately goes on break. That's a pretty good build-up, and I think it will help the pacing of the overall fight once the actual serialization is done. Because years from now, someone will read Gojo vs. Sukuna, and they'll get through this chapter in like 3 minutes and enjoy it the entire time, and immediately click next. But that's just my opinion, and I want to hear yours. Do you think this chapter was a banger? And do you think that Sukuna is going to pop off in 2 weeks? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.